Set key is a manual creation mode for animation keyframes. It gives you a little more control than auto key, but it takes a little more setup in advance. In this scene, I already have position keyframes on the camera. Let's take a look at that. I'll press play in the transport controls. The camera is moving across the room in a slight arc over a period of 5 seconds. Okay, I'll stop that and rewind. Let's add some rotation keys also. I'll choose the rotate tool, and from the reference coordinate system pull down, choose gimbal coordinate system, and select the camera. For a pan left to right, we'll want to rotate around the gimbal z-axis, and that's what will be recorded in the animation tracks. We can then edit that curve in the function curve editor later. We don't have any keyframes for rotation just yet. I like the composition of this shot on frame 0, so I'll manually create a rotation key for that using Set Key Mode. But before setting keys, we need to choose the desired tracks in the key filters. There's a button down here labeled Key Filters. Click that button, and in the dialog, we want to choose which tracks we're going to animate when we click the big Set Key button. In this case, I only want to keyframe rotation. Turn everything else off, and close the Set Key Filters dialog. To go into Set Key Mode, click the button labeled Set Key or toggle Set Key Mode. And then to create a new keyframe at the current time, simply click the Set Keys button, which is the big plus sign. Now there's a keyframe for rotation at the current time. We can see that by moving the time slider over. Now we've got a keyframe at frame 0 that's got two colors, red and green. The other keyframes in the track bar that I created earlier are colored red. The keys are color-coded. Red is position and green is rotation. Let's create a keyframe at the end of the timeline. We can just click the button to go to the end. And at frame 149, let's rotate the camera around the gimbal z-axis. Do that in the top view. Just rotate that camera so it's panned around a bit. When you have what you want, release the mouse and click the big Set Keys button again. Now we've created a second keyframe. Let's check our work, rewind, and play it back. And we can see that we've got a nice orbit around this scene. It's not quite finished. We can improve that and make it smoother. We'll do that later using the curve editor or maybe the motion paths. I'll stop that and rewind once again. That's the basic concept of creating keyframes in Set Key Mode. One thing to remember is that when you're in Set Key Mode, any changes to previously keyframed transforms or parameters will not take effect until you actually click the big plus sign to create keys. That means if you change an animation track, such as this rotation, and then change the current frame by playing, scrubbing, or otherwise touching any transport control, the track will go into playback mode, and whatever changes you were working on will be lost. But just to illustrate, if I'm on frame 0 and I want to change this animation, I might innocently just rotate that around. And if I forget to press the big Set Key button, if I change my time, then it's going to snap back to what I had a moment ago before I did that rotation. This is another common rookie mistake, forgetting to press the Set Key button and scrubbing to another point in the timeline to check something. You will then lose what you were working on. The good news is that Max is smart enough to save that time slider movement in the undo buffer, so it's easy to restore your work if you make a mistake. You can just right-click on the undo buffer and you can see that Move Frame slider is actually in the list there. So I can undo that. Now I'm restored back to the rotation I had a moment ago, and I can create a keyframe then if I want and update my animation. Maybe we can play that, see what that looks like. All right, well, I liked what I had before, so I'm actually going to undo that. Again, right-click on the undo. You'll notice that there are 3 set key commands in here. There's actually one for each of the 3 axes of X, Y, and Z. And go all the way back before setting that rotate. All right, I'll undo that and get back to where I was, and exit out of Set Key Mode. Another thing to keep in mind about key modes, both Set Key and Auto Key, is that when both modes are off, and you make adjustments to an animated track, you're actually offsetting the existing animation. changing the current frame doesn't take you back to the state you made before the adjustment, like it does in set key mode. So in that regard, set key is actually safer because it is a completely manual process. We're safeguarded in set key mode against mangling our animation. Whereas when both key modes are off, if we're not mindful, we can actually make some destructive changes to our work. So just to illustrate, I've got position and rotation keyframes on the camera. If I grab the Move tool and move the camera up in one of these ortho views, I'll right-click in the front view so I don't lose my selection, and reposition the camera. I've just offsetted all of the animation for that camera position. If I play my timeline, you can see we've still got the same motion. It's just at a higher elevation now. Okay, so I'll rewind and undo that. Right-click and undo. Now we're back where we were. So just be careful and remember that if you're not in any animation mode, any changes you make will actually offset the existing animation. That's how to create keyframes in set key mode.